That was beautiful.
What a day to be alive, Miss Kylie.
It is, indeed.
Welcome to Historia.
Yes, we never have a right order for these things.
No,
we just say words.
We just go in the moment because we
Why
don't
not?
know what organization means.
No, we just guess.
Honestly, that's my whole life.
We got our wine.
And
We got Ruby,
being suspicious.
our cat manager.
Our cat manager, our catager.
Catager.
But I'm drinking my wine out of a Christmas mug. I love it.
I have a Minnesota mug. Never been there.
I have been to Minnesota. We went to Mall of America.
Oh, lucky.
We kept getting lost on, like, what floor we were on because the aquarium was, like, on the first floor, technically.
Yeah.
But we kept thinking that when we first entered, that was the first floor. So Erica and I kept going to the wrong floor trying to find stuff.
How many floors are there?
A lot. There were
bet.
a lot. Oh my gosh. It was fun. We didn't get to go to the amusement park. We were only there for like a day or two.
I feel like if I went to Minnesota, that's the only thing I'd want to do. Like, I don't know what else to do there.
I guess if you like fishing.
That's true.
But yeah, other than that, there's not really that much.
Yeah.
But we saw some family friends too that you know.
Yeah. Yep.
God, I had my purple hair.
Iconic.
Ugh.
Man, iconic. Love that.
One day you'll see emo Jamie.
Yes.
Gross. What a time. Okay. How are you?
I'm about to sneeze, I feel like, but it's not.
God.
I think it's gone. I'm doing pretty well. It's a weekend.
It's been one of those weeks.
It has. It's the weather change, like, for me at least, like, I get affected very easily by the weather.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Oh, it was Tuesday night where it just started getting really cold.
Yeah.
And, like, my whole body just shut down.
Oh,
Like, I was like, like, I just, like, went into a coma and, like, stayed in my blanket for, like, 4 hours, and I just couldn't move.
Oh, my God. Last weekend when we were in New Mexico for one of James's races, we decided where we were located for the race, it was at a ski resort.
Yeah.
And nowhere was, like, a good flat area to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
So, we decided to put our tent in the bed of James's truck and just sleep on there.
Oh.
And it honestly is a good thing that we did because I feel like we would have been colder sleeping on that cold ground because it was cold out. But we had like a bunch of blankets. I could not sleep because my nose was cold. Everywhere else I was fine,
and
but
you can't
my
really
nose.
cover it.
No. Or I would have like, and then Layla, she was like dead weight. She was tired. But yeah, it was a long drive. It was really cold in the morning. Like it kind of had like a few flurries come down, but then it got like really warm, really nice out.
Oh, wow.
But it was beautiful.
That's
oh my
awesome.
God, it was so beautiful out there. But it's getting cold now.
Yeah.
I'm not excited.
No, I do not like cold weather.
See, I don't mind cold weather. I just like to be warm in it.
Okay, I get that.
So, like, constantly, James needs to put on the heat. Last night, I thought I was going to freeze.
Same.
But he's like, it's not that time yet. We can still...
That's my roommates, too. I'm, like, always cold, and they're like...
Yeah.
Like, my roommate had her window open, and I was like, well, it's, like, 40 degrees out. What are you doing?
I freeze all the time. Like,
Same.
my office at work, one of my coworkers, he has a fan on all the time because he's so hot. And I'm like bundled in my winter coat because I'm so cold.
Yeah.
But I was like, you're a dude, you have all that hair on you and your guys' body temperature is always like different too. So
I think I have a problem with, like, my blood circulation or something. Because, like, like, the smallest, like, gust of wind, I, like, freeze. And, like, when it's freezing out, like, literally freezing, my body, like, cannot stop shaking. Like, no matter how bundled up I am. Like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I cannot handle cold.
It all depends on my gloves, too. Because my hands get frozen. Like, my hands are always cold.
Yeah.
But, like, in cold weather, my hands just, like, become icicles. Like, I become Jack Frost. It's bad. But...
Cold weather problems. Everyone in, like, Florida is like, can't relate.
I can't wait to go there during the winter. I'm excited.
I'm going to New York during the fall, winter.
That's like in a month. Almost.
I know. When you guys are listening, it's like next week or something.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I know. I cannot wait. We booked our Broadway shows. I spent a fortune.
Oh, I bet.
It will be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing 3 shows, so it'll be good. But
that's exciting.
yeah, we're super excited. We had to buy the tickets because they were like selling out like crazy since Broadway just opened again, and I was like, there's no way I can go to New York and not go to shows. Like, that would be pointless. So yeah. So we bought our tickets, and we'll be able to see like the Macy's Day Parade because we'll be there for Thanksgiving. So
remember, send me pictures of the giant rats. That's all I want.
Hoping I will.
That's all I want to see. Giant rats.
The giant rats. I'll be like, do you want to see a picture of like Times Square? You'll be like, no, just a rat.
Rat
just
in
rats.
Times Square.
Rat.
I want them dancing.
Just like a rat eating, like Ratatouille, just like eating a piece of pizza. I want him dancing.
Ratatouille.
I'm like terrified that I'm gonna like step on a rat or like one's gonna just like climb up me or something. I don't know. I'm kind of scared of that situation, but it's fine.
Well, James does say that it's very dirty. Mm-hmm. But we'll see.
I can't wait to tell you guys my stories that happened there.
Oh my god, yeah. Those are always fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited. It's like the only vacation I have until like I'm going to a few weddings out of state next year, but and then our honeymoon. But yeah.
What are you guys gonna do for your honeymoon?
We're thinking Hawaii.
Ooh,
tropical. So yeah, that's what we're thinking. Or we might do like the Bahamas or something, or Jamaica.
Ooh,
we were thinking about Jamaica. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Cruises are pretty affordable.
I don't like being on the ocean.
Yeah.
I just don't. I get anxiety. Like, I feel like a cruise I'd be okay, but like I don't like being on boats.
The thing is, when you're on a cruise, since you're legal, you could just drink the entire time and just be wasted.
Yes.
Just don't stand near the edge.
I just... I
need a way off.
I need a way off. I'd love to go on a cruise one day, but like, not for my honeymoon. That feels weird. I don't know.
I think that's what my parents did.
I think we'll go to Hawaii because like...
That's fun.
I can't see us going with
and
like kids.
And you get laid.
Yeah. My parents are there right now. They're coming back tomorrow. Honeymoon problems. It's not a problem.
Wow.
But yeah. Also, I need to make my wedding guest list still, so...
That should be fun.
So I can send and save the dates. And we also need to take engagement pictures. So, like, we have a lot to do. But...
Is your sister going to take them?
Yeah.
Nice.
So, we were waiting till, like, the fall. Like, till, like, the leaves started coming out, but...
Prime times right now.
I know, we're getting there.
Do it this weekend.
Maybe not this weekend, but...
You're going to run out of time. James is yelling at my window. Love it. Alrighty. Ruby's sleepy, so it's time to share the story.
She's like, hurry up.
Gonna have nightmares. I'm gonna give her nightmares. This one is more just like the entire time when I was doing my research, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And why? I just kept asking why.
Why? But for what?
But also, I'm just like, really? I kept saying really a lot when I was going through my research. I was like, really? 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 Yeah, and
are you like for reals?
Honestly. So, today, I am talking about the Jamestown settlement.
Dun, 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 dun.
I thought this would be a good one just because I covered Roanoke.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be like a good shift into more of the development of the colonization.
Right.
Especially of like Virginia. But it's November when this comes out. And this was a huge factor into that colonization to become what is celebrating, even though I should have done the Puritans in Plymouth.
Yeah.
Who really kind of just, who did that first Thanksgiving pretty much.
Yeah.
Did you know, here's a little fun fact. Turkey was not the original food used at the first Thanksgiving.
Do I want to know what it is?
Swan. Duck.
And then everyone's just
else.
like, actually, let's not eat that anymore. Let's just stick with turkey.
Yeah, there was something else. I remember my work last year, they did, they did like a whole trivia thing, and they did one for Thanksgiving, and one of it was just like, what food did they eat on the first Thanksgiving? And it was like, it was the food that they had available, pretty much. So
makes sense.
I don't think quail was on it, but turkey was not on the list. It wasn't until it was like Americanized to the point of just like making it tradition of what you eat.
Probably because it's too expensive to get the other birds.
Well, no one wants to eat a duck or swan all the time.
Right.
So, I mean, turkey is just the way to go.
Turkeys are easier to catch, and there's more of turkeys in the world. She responded well to your turkey gobble.
Oh, thank you, Ruby. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Please do not get on my book. Okay. So, let's get started. Ruby? I don't think so. So, we had the conversation with Roanoke and the failure that it was.
Yes.
This did not prevent England from being discouraged. Now, for about almost 20 years or so, they kind of just gave up, in a sense, that they didn't really care to set grants or to set expeditions from the queen herself to really go forth with a new colony. It was mostly just explorers going up and down, trying to explore more of like the Chesapeake Bay, or just more of like Massachusetts area. They were interested at this point because they knew there was more further north than what they found in North Carolina. And of course, like, you have the Spanish who are getting their foot further into the door, wanting to know more. And then the British, English, they were getting frustrated, at a sense, with the Spanish. They wanted more. Now, Roanoke definitely left a bitter taste in England's mouth. They were like, oh, do we really want to do this, or do we want to try and just do our own thing, whatever? But
by the way, if you haven't listened to Roanoke episode, do that first.
Do that first, because it's super important. It gives foundation to what I'm going to talk about today, because if I didn't do Roanoke, I would definitely cover them into Jamestown. But since I already did it, I don't need to. So go ahead and listen to that one. So there is always still a lingering interest that England really wanted. They were like, well, we didn't find gold here, because it was all about gold. Yeah. Everybody wanted to find gold. And that was the main reason for Roanoke, was that they thought that it would be great soil. They could find gold. They could really establish something. And they didn't find it. And so they were like, okay, that was a disappointment. But they still had that like lingering thought that, well, maybe it's further north. Maybe it's somewhere else that we just haven't been looking. Yeah. Newsflash. Bitches were wrong, kind of. Well, because the mining industry is huge in Virginia, West Virginia, like all those places, but they didn't know that at the time. And they weren't really searching the right areas. Okay, they never searched the right areas, to be honest. They're kind of bad at that. Now, before we even talk about Jamestown, and we call that the first, like, settlement of the English. Yeah. It technically wasn't. Oh. Yeah. There was another exploration that went on in 1602. This is what we call Cuttyhunk Island. It is part of the Elizabeth Islands that are, like, up by, like, Massachusetts. There's all the specific names. Now, there are 3 primary explorers who decided to go further north. They become important into the Jamestown expedition. So this is Captain Bartholomew Gosnold, Captain Bartholomew Gilbert, and Captain Gabriel Archer. They decided to explore this area in May of 1602. So last week we were talking about Bartholomew. There's freaking 2, and one of them dies. I'll briefly touch that. But
so we have Bart. What were their last names?
We have Gosnold.
So Bart G.
They're both Bart G's.
Oh,
because the second one's Gilbert. We got Gilly and Gauzy.
There we go. They're both Bart G. Oh, what are the odds of that?
I know. Gabriel Archer, he doesn't really have a role. I don't think he plays like no role in like the Jamestown expedition. He just goes with the other two. Yeah,
he's like, oh, I'm just here for the fun times.
Now they said particularly on the island, because they wanted to establish a new colony. That was their interest, but they didn't get that full support from Queen Elizabeth I. They kind of just did it on their own dime and kind of just wanted to know more. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. This island, what we call Cutty-Hunk Island, to the natives is called Pocahontas.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's so long. I am so sorry. Pocahontas. It's a really long word. I like it though. But of course it was changed when they colonized because they're like, we're not calling it that. We're gonna call it Cutty-Hunk for some freaking reason. I don't get it. Now they wanted to establish this new colony, but they literally lasted 2 weeks before sailing back to England. What? They're like, there wasn't really much that I could find on it, but they sat there for 2 weeks. We're like, no, this isn't the place. Let's dip.
Not good enough for us.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. They're like, oh, this is not going to last. Because I think it was on like an island, which is not a good thing. Being on an island is not smart because if you have enemies like the Spanish, they can come at you at all angles and you would never know. Because if you're on like the north side and they come from the south side, you wouldn't know.
Right.
So being on an island is not smart when you're thinking about attackers, invaders.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So it's good to be in like kind of mainland.
Central area.
Inland, yeah.
Yeah.
Inland, you have like a higher, like, you know what to predict.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, now, last week, or like a couple weeks ago when I covered Roanoke, this was probably about like
a
month ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Queen Elizabeth was a huge proponent in that episode for Roanoke because she was the queen at the time and she was the one who gave John White and all of the other expeditions for Roanoke the A-OK.
Yeah.
She does not really play a role in Jamestown because guess what? She dies. And guess what? Guess who becomes the next ruler?
Who?
James the 6th of Scotland. He's also James I of England. Oh. He took the throne March 24th, 1603. Now, he instantly had an interest in the colonization of the New World. He was just like, oh, honey, let's do it. I'm ready for it. I want it all. I want to explore it. I'm going to give you money. Like, here we go. He had more interest in Elizabeth because I feel like Elizabeth was thinking more inside of her country, wanting to kind of keep it just like within. But James had like a different motive.
Yeah.
Because England was becoming very populated. So he thought, well, maybe if we start colonizing this area, building settlements and stuff, we can kind of push the population out.
Gotcha.
So it's like, you get it, but it's just like, dude.
Dude, let's not.
You're kicking people out to freaking risk their lives.
Yeah.
To an unknown land that you don't know what's going to happen. But it's like, people didn't care. They're like, okay, we'll go. We don't have anything keeping us here. And it's like, oh, honey, you're going to die. Bye. But now, he did not let the failure of Roanoke faze him. He was like, okay, I'm going to do it right this time. We're going to do this the way that I want it. And we're going to do it by planning it out and making sure the area that we choose is not a fucking hellhole. So In the year of 1606, in April, James decided to jump on the settlement craze, and he granted land in North America for the Virginia Company of London and the Virginia Company of Plymouth. These are two trading companies that are very big, and he gave them the grants to go ahead and start a colony or settlement over there to get people to push over there, to get ships, pretty much provide them all that they needed to take a sail over there.
Okay.
So this is important.
That's good.
So this time everyone wanted to make sure that the right area was chosen. So they wanted to make sure that there was waterways that they could get up to so that they weren't just like, I guess, exposed to just anything that could happen, like a hurricane, tsunami, even though tsunamis don't happen over there. Anything that could destroy their ships by them just being there. They wanted to find like some sort of like river that they could go up that's deep enough that they could go through. And they also wanted to find an area that's not near the natives, because we already know with the Algonquins that they did not have a good relationship with them, and they already knew that no matter where they would go, they're not going to have a good relationship with the natives. That's just how it was going to be. So they wanted to find somewhere that's like further away from them. But of course that doesn't happen.
Right.
Because they don't know where they're located. They just kind of assume this blank area for the time just means that, oh, there's no natives in the freaking 100,000-mile radius.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Very far.
Very far.
Now, getting to the voyage, the following months, it was around December 19th, December 20th, 1606. I found that one of my sources said 104 settlers. I saw on my book that I used 244 settlers took sail to Virginia.
Okay. One of those numbers.
Yeah, because I also took from that book that I read on Roanoke, if you don't remember, it's the American colonial history clashing, oh my god.
Long title there.
Clashing Cultures and Faiths by Thomas S. Kidd. This book is great. There's so much history. It gives you everything that you need to know. But it's like, some of it I had to like dig a little bit deeper because there's a lot to cover in that one. So books like that, it's not strictly about Jamestown. It gives you like an overview of everything. But so I had to dig a little bit deeper. But in that one, I believe it said the 244 settlers. Now, captaining this voyage would be Christopher Newport, Bartholomew Gosnold, Ghazi, and John Radcliffe. I believe the other Bartholomew died.
Oh, he didn't play much of a part.
Yeah, because I believe he went back to do an exploration around the Chesapeake Bay, and he got killed.
Oh, okay.
So now we only have Ghazi. So if you think I'm missing someone who is very important into this expedition, can you guess?
Who's very important?
That we all know?
Smith?
Yep. So he was supposed to be a captain as well. Mm-hmm. This dude, I don't know what it is. He escaped death so many times. I don't know
He's
how.
He's like a cat. He has 9 lives.
I guess so, because he, like, so many times they would be like, you are going to be executed. And then someone would just, like, kind of swoop in and be like, no, he's okay. And then he would just survive. I don't know how he did it.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was a weird dude. He looks weird. I have a picture of him in my little book that I have.
I've never seen a picture.
Yeah, he's fugly. But it's also a painting, so who knows what he really looked like. Probably had scurvy. I don't know. So, now, John Smith, he was an explorer, captain, and kind of I felt like reading his book, he's kind of full of himself, but like his relationship with the natives is very interesting because he has probably the best relationship with the Powhatans.
Yeah.
But he still calls them all savages. And he just explains, like, his relationship is so back and forth with them. It's like, it's toxic.
Oh, for sure.
It's a toxic relationship.
That makes sense.
I don't support it. But now he, along the way to traveling to Virginia, he was accused of mutiny.
Oh.
All of the other captains aboard thought that he was going to overpower all of them and that he was going to pretty much take control. And so for the entire trip to Virginia, he was in shackles.
Oh my God, they were that threatened by him?
Yeah, and he was supposed to be executed because they stopped along the way to Virginia in the West Indies, and he was supposed to be executed. And they had it all planned out, but then a reverend, I have him down. It was, oh my God, I got crazy. But a reverend actually stopped him. It was Reverend Robert Hunt. He prevented it. He was just like, hey, let's not do this. Like, come on, let's just keep going back to Virginia. He spared the life for John Smith. Yeah. So he stayed in prison for the rest of the ship ride to Virginia. But he got away with death. Like, they didn't execute him. I was like, that's so crazy. God. Like, imagine if they did.
He's very lucky.
He is very lucky. He has a lucky star. Now, setting sail, there were 3 ships. You have the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and the Discovery. We don't really know those ones as much.
No,
because we know of Jamestown, but when it comes to just, like, the establishment of it, we don't really know much.
That's fair.
As just, like, learning it in school. Like, I don't think we ever really covered Jamestown, I guess.
If we did, I don't remember.
Well, they probably learn it more, like, on the East Coast and because we're West Coast, technically.
It'd be part of their, like, state history, I guess.
Yeah. Colorado history is all about, like, freaking coal and gold and silver.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Now, so all of the settlers, too, were all men. There was no women. This was technically just to get them situated to pretty much get their footing on the new soil. So there's no women. It's just friggin' 200 men.
Yikes. That's my worst nightmare.
That's a lot. So by April 26, 1607, the 3 ships have made it to the Chesapeake Bay. Now, making it to the Bay Council, when they made it to the Bay, it's weird. So along the way, there was this box that they had that had all the appointed council to be made for when they get to the new colony, to the new settlement. And they couldn't open it until they got on shore, pretty much. And so when they got on shore, they had this ceremony type thing where it was like this black box pretty much that they opened, and it had all the names of the the governor, the president. At the time it wasn't a governor, they called him the president, and then they would have all of the members that would be part of the council.
Yeah.
Now, a part of the council, we had this guy named John Martin, John Ratcliffe, George Kendall. John Smith was supposed to be on the council, but he was still in prison. They're like, nah, fam, you're done. You're done. You're just going to be sitting here. And he was just like in his shackles, like, fine, I'll get out of these. Don't you worry.
I like to think that they're like taking roll. They're like, John Smith? And they're like, oh yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, no one liked him. I don't think anyone really liked him. He was
kind of besides himself. He was his biggest fan.
Yeah, he was just lonely John Smith. Now, the president would be a guy named Edward Maria Wingfield. Mm. Yeah, he was an interesting guy. He wouldn't last very long. I have learned in my research there are a lot of officials that go through the establishment of this settlement, and you are going to learn how many there were. I gotta admit, there's some that I did not add just because there was just so much. Yeah. But I highly recommend that you guys do some research to learn all of the governors, because there was freaking a shit ton. No one could rule for very long. It was not a good system.
Oh, yikes.
Now, a lot of the settlers who came, especially when you think of just like people who would come to America, you think a lot of just their religious freedom. Like the Puritans, for when they rode on Plymouth, they came to seek religious freedom. A lot of religion plays heavily to this culture, to the English people. Religion was everything, and they wanted the native population to know that.
Yeah.
They wanted to prove that their God was the God. Mm-hmm. Because the Powhatans, they all have their own beliefs in their own God. The God who can present goodness, one who presents badness, where for us, it's always, we just have this one great God. But for them, there's multiple, and nature is always heavily influenced into their cultures, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
But with the settlers who were on board, a lot of them were Catholics and Protestants, Anglicans, because that was the dominant religion at the time. Because whenever a king or queen would come into the monarchy to become the leader of England, that their religion would be the dominant religion. Oh, okay. So it shifts continuously. Yeah. A lot of people hated Catholics.
Yeah.
That was, whew. But I believe at the time, Protestantism, Christianity was like the big overall. Oh, for sure, like when you look deeper into it, it was mostly Protestant and Anglicans that really took the
throne.
Took the throne of it, honestly. Literally. Now, to represent that that their religion is the religion, the settlers built this giant cross and presented it up when they landed onto, I believe it was Henry Island or Henry. Yeah, Cape Henry. This was not only representing like their beliefs and just how important it is to them, but it also was a sign of showing their dominance of their religion over the native population.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty much saying that our God is the one God. Weirdo.
It's like a figure.
So after they established this cross, they decided, well, we got to start building our fort. We gotta build our colony, just like how Roanoke did, how all the other ones did. We gotta build something.
Yeah.
This. Excuse me.
Bless you.
They believed that for Jamestown, it was going to be the greatest spot that they could think of. They thought that this was where they decided the fort to be was the perfect area for it. They were dumb. They were smart because they had water on 3 sides of them.
Okay,
but they were far enough inland to not have like land behind them, so they could see outwards. So if Spain was to attack, they thought about Spain mostly attacking them, that they could see them come in before. And they thought, like, that's not a bad idea.
Right, I can see where they're coming from.
But it's like you forget about the people who are behind you.
It's not just Spain, but...
It's not just Spain. Now, they also were along the Chesapeake River, or they were the James River, of what they would call it. It was deep enough that they could put their ships in there, which is good enough because then they have them close by and that they're not going to be destroyed by the weather.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart. And from where they located also, they could not see the native population in Aisha. They were just like, oh, they're not around here. They were. It's just you don't think that they're going to be like 100 feet.
Yeah.
Or so. Probably not that short, but they're like, they were far enough, but they were close enough to like really have like a relationship with them. And it would be very close that they would run into the Powhatans and be like, hey, we're here. And of course, they're just like, oh, God, we heard of you people.
Like, oh, man, we didn't think you'd find us.
The problem with this location, too, where they chose, is that they were right next to a marshy swamp. Swamps are not a good place to live by. Do you know why?
They're disgusting.
They are disgusting.
I just think of Shrek. This is my
swamp. That's pretty much what they did when establishing the sport, is that they wanted them to stay out of their swamp. But it's dirty water that they were drinking out of.
Yep, makes sense.
There were mosquitoes.
Oh yeah,
West Nile.
I feel like everything's just wet.
Yeah, it was not a good area, and then all of that, like a lot of that, like mugginess and stuff, that causes like attraction to just a bunch of bugs. Just like they didn't know better to like don't drink that water, but they still drank it and got dysentery.
YOLO.
Are you surprised? I am not. But it's just they didn't think that it wasn't the ocean water, it wasn't the river water. Because the river water was still salty too. So like they're drinking that, and salt water is terrible for you. That's how you get dehydrated and die. So they didn't know what to do. Oh my God, they didn't have a clue. It was off to a bad start already. Like everybody knew it was bound to be doomed, but King James had such high hopes. Yikes. Now, talking about the natives in this area, we are going to talk about the Powhatan's chiefdom.
Whoa.
So, what I was researching a little into is that this chiefdom had multiple areas throughout. Now, what they didn't call what is now Eastern Virginia, they called it Tesnencamach. Oh my God. Senecama. What is that? Is that an A or an H? I don't know what I put. I think that's an A. Senecamatka.
I'm really calling it just, what part of Virginia?
Eastern.
I like just calling it East Virginia.
East Virginia. But, because they all had their names for everything, and of course, like, when the colonizers come in, they're like, we don't like that, that's too long, or that just, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it what I want. So that's what they did.
Of course.
Now, this chieftain was big. For the Powhatans, there was about 20,000.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot. And of course, like, if you're gonna piss them off,
yeah,
you're in for a world of hurt, especially when there's only 200 of you.
Right.
You got your hands tied, pretty much, and you're still trying to set up. This chiefdom, or like this culture, they were very hunter-gatherers, so the men would do the hunting and the fishing, the women would do the gathering of like the corn stalks and whatnot. It's like how most of the indigenous cultures are. They would follow, I'm sure there's a few where they would have mixed roles or kind of combined roles, but specifically the Powhatans had like that hunter-gatherer. Yeah. And I thought that's just cool because that was the one thing that they got right in Pocahontas, the movie. That movie is so far from anything.
Yeah, it is.
I still love it. Pocahontas is
it's a good movie.
Beautiful.
John Smith.
Freaking Mel Gibson. Oh my God, he is old.
Oh yeah.
The funny thing with, I don't know why, but there was just immediately bad blood between the settlers of Jamestown and the Powhatans. There was probably just like a fight that went on, and they're just like, oh hell no, we don't like you. This is immediate bad blood. And I'm sure they heard of what they did with the Algonquins and immediately were like, okay, we can't trust these people. We can't trust these white men. Mm-hmm. Pocahontas.
Interesting.
Now, with this bad blood, on May 26, 1607, 200 Powhatans would attack Jamestown, killing one, I think it was like a teenager or so, and then it wounded about 11.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this was when they first like were establishing the fort, and so they didn't really have any protection for themselves, so they kind of just were attacked and were like, oh shit, like this is bad. And so by June 15th, they had completely built their fort. It's shaped... Sorry, Ruby, I didn't mean to scare you. At this time, it's shaped like a triangle. And at each point, they would have what is called a bulkhead. I have it written down. Yeah, it's pretty much like a tower that they would have at each point, and then they would have like a fencing around it.
Gotcha.
So it would protect them inside the fort. Okay. And then they would have like a tower at each point so that they can watch to see if there's anybody who, any of like the natives that would be lurking about that they could keep an eye on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So this fencing, of course, wasn't like built the finest because they just built with what they had, like any of the wood around them. But it was it was still something more than just like having just this land that could be easily, I guess, attacked, ambushed.
Invaded, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they did. It's a bulwark. I found it. Now, in this time of like the first like month and a half in, couple months in, finally, Smith was lifted from his imprisonment and put on the council. He was just like, oh, hell yeah, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm going to do greatness. Don't you worry. I'm going to help you guys out. Thank you for imprisonment. Yeah, he's finally released because I'm pretty sure they finally were like, okay, he's just sitting there watching us get attacked. So I guess we'll let him back into the club. Let him out. He's part of the club now.
I feel like they just thought he was annoying. So that's why they kept him.
That's what I think. Honestly, he kind of is annoying.
They're like, I don't really want to deal with him today. So we're just going to leave him in there.
Now, like, after all of that, after that attack and just establishing the fort, they're like, okay, this is going to be rough already. One of y'all need to leave and go get some more supplies and people. Like, we need to start building. So you got to go. This time, it would be leaving on June 22nd. Newport would sail back on the Susan Constant. It would take Godspeed back with them. So the Discovery was the only ship left.
Oh, okay.
So, like, for some reason, if they needed to leave, they had the Discovery. But I don't know why he took two with him. What a weirdo.
Interesting choice.
I guess it is. It is what it is. Now, in this time of... We're losing a Bartholomew again.
No, not the other one.
In this time that Newport was gone, Gosnold would die.
Ghazi.
Yeah. And the great thing, I would actually like to check it out, but they actually have the historic site, the excavation of Jamestown, and pretty much just how you can look at all of like the unmarked graves and stuff, because they're doing archaeological work to try and figure out like who was who, like who died, and trying to look through all of the documentation to see like who it could have been, because they didn't really mark them. They kind of just put a cross as like a marker that someone is dead there. But they actually discovered, I think not too long ago, I think it was like within the last like 30-40 years, they figured out where Ghazi was buried and who it was. Pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, he was one of the first to like die in the colony. I was like, dude, you didn't have a shot. And this also, in this time, Wingfield, who didn't really have like any presence known that I could find in like my history, like any of my research.
That scared me. God.
Enjoy your dinner. But Wingfield, I feel like, didn't really have, like, a role as much, because I didn't really find anything on him.
Yeah.
He would be disposed. He would be like, they were just like, you're done. You're not being a good president. You're done.
He's like, oh, man, I tried.
Pretty much. So Radcliffe. Yeah, John Radcliffe would become the president now.
Okay.
Now.
AKA governor.
AKA governor. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing is what they... Because they didn't really have it established as governor yet, but it would be later on, which is weird. Because they stopped calling people president and started calling them governor, and I'm like, I guess that's the same thing. I don't
Close
get
enough,
their way.
I guess.
Yeah. Now, there were already problems that were coming with this settlement that no one really knew would come of it. Mm-hmm. So, throughout the summer and into the winter, the population would perish, or like it would drop significantly.
Yeah.
So by 1604, 144 people would perish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty quick. This is due to the freaking swamp, by people drinking bad water and getting dysentery, disease from like probably the mosquitoes, and just, you also had
ogres,
like scurvy, ogres. Scurvy, malnutrition, starvation. It was bad. And the fucked up part is that the leaders would call these people lazy for not doing their job. Because they were so starved and had such bad malnutrition that they didn't have the energy to do the job, but they called them lazy.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, what did you expect? There's no food because they couldn't grow anything.
Right.
They were asking the Powhatans to help them out. Without the help of the Powhatans of giving them corn, there was no way that they could have survived. Jamestown would have lasted just as long as Roanoke did.
Yikes.
If it weren't for them. Their relationship is so weird because sometimes they're like a buddy, like the natives and the colonizers, and I'm just like, what the heck? And then other times they just go full out battle mode, and I'm like, this is a toxic relationship. This is awful.
Oh, yeah.
But like, no one made it better in this situation. Like, it was brutal both ways, but definitely it didn't help that the settlers just like stopped in and was like, hey, we're gonna do this, and they're just like, dude, this is our territory. What the heck are you doing?
Can you like go somewhere else?
Yeah, so it's like, of course the settlers kind of started it, but it's a never-ending feud that happens.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't die from like any of those that I just listed, you would also die of fever, swelling, and any of like the diseases that would pop up, like friggin' I don't know, probably even like chickenpox or something would kill you instantly because you didn't have any medication.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is 1600s.
Can't get your shot.
Can't get your shot. Now, we're going to go into John Smith's Adventures.
Yay!
That's my title for it. I just called it Smith's Adventures because his adventures are honestly some of the most interesting ones, because it's just like, how did you survive? That's why I was
I'm still
just
surprised he's alive at this point.
That's why so many times I'm like, really? I'm like, what? It's just a lot of just confusion. But he somehow made it alive and survived quite a while. It's wild. In December 1607, Smith and a few others would travel up the Chickahominy River in search of food, because they couldn't grow anything. I think it was that they weren't good farmers in the first place, but I don't think the soil was well enough either.
Oh.
Or for the crops that they were trying to make.
Yeah.
It wasn't, they just didn't have the skills to do so, and they probably didn't have the energy to really keep up with it.
Right.
So they had to rely on other stuff, and so Smith was just like, I'll go find stuff, don't you worry, guys.
And everyone's just like, shut up, John.
Pretty much. Now, on his way up the river, he was captured. He was captured by Powhatan. So, Powhatan was the chief.
Okay.
Of the tribe.
Gotcha.
And they're the Powhatan's chiefdom. But his brother, Openchankanga, he took Smith, killed the rest of his party, took him to the capital, and was like, we're gonna kill you. Now, this capital is Werowocomoco. I like that name.
That's fun.
Werowocomoco. I really like that name.
I like it.
Now, this would start the story that we all know of.
Uh-huh.
This would be the story that Pocahontas would enter.
Ah.
So while he's at this capital, I'm just going to call him Opie. Opie was... I'm sorry if I disrespect that.
It's easier to say.
It's such a long name. But I get it. But so he was just like, we're going to kill you. Powhatan was like, maybe. But of course, you have the story that Pocahontas would come in, cover over his body, over his head, and plead that he be saved. That he be, that he's not executed by the people of the Powhatans. Now, there's no definitive proof that this is true. Sorry to burst your bubble. It could have been, if it was true to the extent, it could have been in like a mock ritual of welcoming him into the tribe.
Yeah.
But if it was through his interpretation. His experience was through his words that we have of this.
So we don't know if it was...
Yeah, it could have been a complete lie, or he just embellished it.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, that the Pocahontas movie is a highly disappointed one. But you know what? It's still pretty good. I love the scene where he says these white men are dangerous. True.
Get that tattooed.
Get that tattooed. Now, Smith would be gone for a long time in this, like, capturement, pretty much. He kind of was just hanging out with the Powhatans, just being like, oh yeah, I'm part of you guys. While Jamestown Fort was just struggling. Their population would drop down to 38.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was hardly any people left. And then they just let Smith go, and he kind of just wandered back into the camp, was like, hey guys, how's it going? Oh my god, what happened to this guy? What happened to this guy? What happened to this guy? And they're like, where were you? You were supposed to go get food. And he was just like, oh, I got distracted. I'm sorry, I didn't bring any with me. And they were pissed.
They already don't like him, and they're like, come on, bro.
No, they decided they wanted to hang him.
Oh, but I'm guessing it didn't happen.
Yeah. Now, he was in the process of being hanged and pretty much put on, pretty much like on the noose, like ready to go. And then Newport showed up with the new supplies and 100 new colonizers, settlers. Oh. And so they're like, okay, we have new people coming in. I guess we'll spare you. So he survived this is the third time that he has technically been spared. Oh my god. I'm like, how do you do that? And I'm pretty sure he gets spared another couple times.
Of course he does.
I'm just like, dude, how do you do it? I don't know if he's like, I'm pretty sure he's like a smooth talker of some sort.
He must be.
Yeah. Now we're in 1608. So this was all within the first year that they were there.
Yikes.
So I'm so sorry. This one is going to be a very long one. Just so you guys know, because there is a lot to Jamestown.
That's fair.
In 1608, so on January 7th, a fire breaks out into the settlement. And it destroys a lot. Like, it destroyed one of their churches that they built. They had to rebuild it. So that took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. It was not, and I'm pretty sure it killed a lot of their crops too. So that was terrible. This fire was awful for their settlement.
Yikes.
Also in this time, we would also have, to understand more of the Powhatans, what they decided to do was trade each of their people to switch into, so they would take one of the English settlers and throw him in with the Powhatans to learn the language and the culture.
Oh, wow.
And the Powhatans would do the same for the English to learn. So they could have like so they could communicate to one another and kind of understand why they did the things that they would do and stuff like that. Kind of understand them more. It wasn't a sense of trying to like coexist with one another, because I don't think they ever wanted to coexist with each other, because there's so much war between them. It was more so just like a way to pretty much tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
In their language that they could understand. But the Powhatan guy, a kid that would join them would be Namantuak. There wasn't really much more that I could find on him other than that he would be then part of the colonizer. So that would be taking out one more settler into their fort. In September, a new supply would come in and 70 new people would join. And we would have our first 2 women join the colony.
Woo woo!
This was Mrs. Thompson Forrest and her maid Anne Burruss. Mrs. Thompson died. She didn't live very long.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, because there wasn't in their reports that they, like the documentation that they read on, there wasn't really much on Miss Forrest, so they kind of just like assumed that she died like almost as soon as she got there. But Anne Burruss, she would be one of the first to marry in the settlement.
Oh, okay.
So she married like a planner. Because they were like, well, we got to start building our population. Let's bring some ladies up in here. So they did. Now, in September, this would be a really big turning point for the distaste between the Powhatans and the settlers. Mm-hmm. Now, Newport wanted to give Chief Powhatan a crown to be like, you are the king, you're great, like you're great for your chiefdom. Come to Jamestown, we'll represent this, we'll give it to you. But he was like, I don't want that. No, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. I don't want it. And so this just like immediately put like a feud between the two. And I'm like, toxic.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
It's a theme we're learning. It's reoccurring.
Smith would also become president now.
Oh my God.
He went from a council member to almost being hanged to now the president. And he was just like, for the short time that he was president, he put a lot of his effort into defending the fort. He wanted to make sure that the natives couldn't like come in and just like randomly attack him, which I'm just like, aren't you friends with them? Like, the fuck? But his quote that he says, and I'm just like, dude, you're really, he that shall not work shall not eat. So anybody in the fort who didn't work could not eat. So God. You had to work to eat, pretty much. And it's just like, well, that sucks if you have a broken leg and you can't work. Right, or like if you're sick,
like, that's horrible.
Now, with more people coming over and just they're trying to build their population because it's hard to keep the population up because people keep dying for all of these causes, all of these reasons, that they decided to build the fort bigger. So instead of it being the triangle shape now, it was about like 5-sided.
Oh, okay.
And they would have each of like those towers to keep tabs and just like build that fence and whatnot. They were struggling. All of the settler colonists, they were struggling. They also tried to trade with the Powhatans, like with whatever they had to get corn. Yeah. And Chief Powhatan found out and was like, stop trading with the white people. It's like, just let them die out at that point. Now, in 1609, this whole year, the natives and the people of Jamestown would just keep raiding and ambushing each other. It was like a back and forth.
Like tag you're it.
Pretty much, it was like this whole Anglo native war that would continue on. It would just keep going. And I'm just like, oh my God, doesn't that get old? But it's just like, why do you guys keep doing this? Y'all are... But they just, honestly, I find that they didn't know what else to do with themselves because they couldn't grow anything.
Yeah.
So I guess war was in their cards. In March, they decided James decided in March of 1609 that they needed to start sending more people over there because England was getting, like, heavily populated. As I mentioned before, that this was, like, a good thing for population control. So in 1609, he was like, let's actually go through with that. Like, let's control our population and just make people seem like it's a great thing that they're going to do for their country, for their land. But in reality, it's, like, the worst possible thing. I think it's torture at that point. Because you don't know what you're getting into. So by June 2nd, a third supply was shipped out onto the seas to go to Virginia. This contained 500 to about 600 immigrants, settlers, whatever you want to call them, colonizers, all of the above. This included livestock. Now, Thomas Gates, he was initiated as the governor, as a deputy governor. So he was going to be, like, pretty much underneath the president. Yeah. And so James was like, okay, you're going to go be the deputy governor, go out and do it. And so he had to set sail with them, Thomas Gate. Now, the thing that sucks about this is that along the way, there was a hurricane that occurred. So only about, out of the 500, 600 that set sailed, only about 300 survived.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, so about 200 died because of the hurricane that they were in the middle of. Yeah. So, and a lot of the livestock and their supplies that they had also went with it. So they're like, well, shit, we don't have a lot. So and it sucks because the supplies that they needed were food, seeds, anything to help them with the starvation. But because instead of bringing more livestock and more supplies, they brought more people, and so they couldn't control that growing population with the food rations. Yeah. So that was their first fault, is that they had more people than they would have supplies. Like, you should have had way more supplies than you should have people to keep up with it, because you never know what happens, especially with a hurricane. So they kind of screwed themselves in that one. Now, with Smith all over the place trying to make deals, being president, just, like, kind of fucking around, they're just like, dude, you need to stop. They would officially just, like, disband Smith. They're like, Smith, you're done. Get out of here. Go do your weird guy shit. And so instead, they decided to make a man, George Percy, to become the next president. George Percy was kind of a savage, like, not in a good way. He was mean. And he did not like the Powhatans at all. No, it's just, whew.
Yikes. There's a lot of people named George and John.
Yeah, they are very common names.
Bartholomew.
Now, I thought this was petty, but it was really funny, and I had to put this. By the fall, the Powhatans would move their capital further away from the fort, because they didn't want they're like, I can't stand this anymore, let's move away. So they picked up and just moved further because they didn't want to deal with them. And I was like, that's petty.
Oh, my God.
That says something. That's a statement right there.
Oh, yeah.
But also in this time, in October, Smith would be injured in, like, a gunpowder explosion. So he actually left at that point. So no more John Smith. Get that out of your head. So technically,
no, I can't let him go.
He's a weird dude. He did a lot of weird stuff. But after all of this, it got worse. Oh, the Powhatans would siege James Fort by pretty much, like, sitting outside of, like, the borders and walls and everything, and prevented them from going outside.
Oh, wow.
This would be a terrible winter. Terrible winter. This would be considered as the starving time. Now, I decided, I have this little excerpt from, this is from Smith. I believe. I have this little booklet that is John Smith's writing. And this excerpt that I'm going to read is his interpretation of how everything was just going at the moment before I go further into this starving time, since he's leaving us. So, he states, God being angry with us plagued us with such famine and sickness that the living were scarce able to bury the dead. Our want of sufficient and good victuals, with continual watching 4 or 5 each night at 3 bulwarks, being the chief cause. There is so much to this, but this booklet is honestly, it's really interesting to see how he sees everything. He definitely calls every single Powhatan a savage, but it's very interesting to see like how their minds really shift and how just like dark it turns, and just how they reach out to their, like, how could God do this to us?
Yeah.
Pretty much, to almost like, and these savages, like, why are they doing, like, they're this is their fault, da da da.
Right, they want answers.
Yeah, but they don't understand it. It's like, because you don't understand nature. You don't understand the surrounding areas that you're a part of. Mm-hmm. So, this starving time, since they're stuck in this fort, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't go out. They couldn't go fish. They couldn't go hunt.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't really do any of that at that point. They resorted to eating their horses, their snakes, rats, cats, dogs, leather, and it's even mentioned...
Leather?
Yeah, like shoe leather.
They just ate it?
Their shoes, yeah.
Oh my God.
They didn't know what else to eat because it came from like a cow or something. And it's even mentioned briefly that cannibalism, like survival cannibalism, was like a thing.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, that's gross. But like, what else are you going to do? It's like the freaking Donner Party.
Right.
101. So now we're into 1610. By spring, about 75% of the population is dead. It was a harsh winter. It was really, really bad. A lot of people died. I can't imagine how many crosses there were.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
Now, in early May, the siege was finally over. The Powhatans finally backed off. They were like, okay, we're done. Bye. So out of the 3... It was about, I think it was like 200 or 300 people that entered in. Only 60 made it out.
Wow.
Yeah, 60 people survived that entire winter. Now, in May, martial law was then made by Percy. And this was very strict behavioral. So you had to... pretty much tell him everything that you were doing, what was going on, like everything was under martial law. Like you couldn't just be like willy-nilly like Smith was. You couldn't just disappear and not return for like another few months and be like, oops, sorry, I was just hanging out with these people, our enemies.
Oops.
So this martial law would be enacted for quite a while. I think it was until like around 1612. I could be wrong. Now, a new leader would then again be made.
Of course.
So Gates was finally just like, I'm done. Bye. See you later.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't want to be governor anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm just going to hang here. And so a new deputy governor would be made. And this was Thomas West, Lord Delaware.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, he would arrive in mid-June, and his first action was to clean up the James Fort, like the Jamestown settlement. He was just like, we gotta clean this shit up. Like, this is looking dank. Like, this is bad. You have bodies everywhere. You have rats running around with, like, their tails cut off. I don't know.
Ew.
I don't know. I made that up.
Disgusting.
But it was bad. And so he was like, we gotta get this in control, because by 1611 in March, only 150 people remained.
Wow.
Yeah. There's so many people dying. In May, 300 men would come with armor and provisions. So that would boost up the population again. All of the ships seem to arrive at that point. There was a lot of just like supplies and stuff, or so many just voyages going back and forth to bring more stuff. And it's like, you're spending so much money. I didn't see how much they spent on just the establishment of this, but I'm guessing it's a lot. Mm-hmm. So in June, Thomas Dale would lead a raid on Nanismun. It is one of the like settlements, villages of the Powhatan natives, and they would burn the houses, they would cut corn, and they would take captives. This pissed them off even more. And it's just like, why are you doing this at this point? Now Gates would return. After piecing out, he was just like, I'm going to go back to England and bring back some more people. Mm-hmm. So that's what he did. He brought 280 more people. Now, John Rolfe, he becomes a very big proponent into it. He was kind of along the ride of like all of this going on, and he kind of just showed up and was like, hey guys, like this is great. I have some stuff from Bermuda that's called tobacco.
Oh God.
Let's try and plant this. This would become a huge cash crop. Like this was its establishment of trading for this colony.
Yeah.
Was tobacco. Because they could take it everywhere, so export it anywhere because people wanted it.
Right.
He was like, I found this great stuff in Bermuda and it actually grows here. Like, this is great news for us, even though we can't eat it. I mean, you can, but it's not going to taste good.
They probably ate it.
I know. So by 1612, King James would make the renewal of the charter for the Virginia Company. And he would make this, Virginia, so the settlement, more self-governance. So this meant that they had more control of what they could do.
Yeah.
Now, Ralph would export more tobacco and start making it like it. So he's starting to become more important into our story so much. Because as we all know, John Rolfe plays a very big point in the Pocahontas story. Mm-hmm. So in April of 1613, Pocahontas is kidnapped from a Patawanmek village by Captain Samuel Argall. I'm just like, so many captains, so many people. Lot. There's so many people heavily involved into this entire story. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
It really is. Now, they brought her to Jamestown and wanted a ransom and demanded that they get their weapons back. Now, the Powhatans are like, hey, we'll give you corn and, like, the captives that we have of your people. And they're like, I don't give a fuck about the people in the corn. I want my weapons back. And they're like, no, we're going to keep them. So for, like, a whole year, they kept Pocahontas in Jamestown. She was there for, like, a whole year. So in 1614... they're just like, in March, they're like, hey, you still haven't done anything about Pocahontas. Like, we still have her. Like, are you going to give us our weapons or not? And they're like, no, but, like, what can we do to, like, kind of unionize us, kind of bring us together, sort of? And so Dale raided their territory and was like, give us our fucking stuff. And then, for some odd reason, they decided, like, to end the war, that Pocahontas and John Rolfe would be married.
Oh, okay.
That supposedly ended the war. Yeah,
ended the war. Just that.
It's weird. So, in April 5th, 1610, John Rolfe and Pocahontas would marry. Guess what her Christian name is? Because she was baptized.
What is it?
Rebecca.
What?
Like, why the... Really? So in 1615, on January 30th, Pocahontas would give birth to their son, Thomas Rolfe. I didn't know that they had a kid.
Yeah, no. Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. So, they would pretty much just stay in the settlement, but by 1616, they decided that they would leave back to England. So, their son, Pocahontas, and John Rolfe would go back to England to kind of just be like, well, look at this marriage that we have between these two people. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
No, it's just for ploy. Now, the settlements started to expand. So you had James Fort, and then you had 5 other settlements that are around the area, like 5 different forts that are around the area that started to grow. And this contained a total of 351 settlers. So it was still small. It was very small, but they started to slowly grow. Now, by 1618, Chief Powhatan would die. And his son, or his brother would then become his successor. And this is Opechapon. But Opie was just like, I'm gonna be the ruler, just you wait. And so he's kind of like hiding in the back, just like, I'm planning something.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. And so in the meantime, we have in 1619, yay, a year later. My bad. 1618, the charter would uplift martial law. So there was no more martial law. No one's being like super strict buttholes about everything. And then there would be a charter that if you were to come over to the New World, you paid your passage, you would get 50 acres. So pretty much you would immediately, so if you paid your money, you get 50 acres, and anybody that you offered to come on over, you would get additional.
Oh, okay.
So they thought this was a great idea, because then you can start friggin' making your land, making money, doing stuff, especially with tobacco growing so successfully there. You had a thought, like, that's where old money started growing. That's how it started down there, was because the people who decided to go over and take that 50-acre land. And a lot of it's still in the family, and families to this day. That's why old money is blood money.
Okay.
So in 1619, the first law requires tobacco to be sold 3 shillings per pound. That's a weird law, but okay.
3 shillings per
It was,
pound.
yeah, I don't know what a shilling, I know what a shilling is, but like I don't know what a shilling is.
Yeah,
so
fair.
by August 2, Africans started appearing. Now, they were not exactly slaves at this time, because there was no law on slavery.
Yeah.
That they had established. They were more as indentured servants. If you don't know what an indentured servant is, it's pretty much where you work. Primarily, it was about 7 years for a rich family, or like a family on a farm. And once you worked those 7 years, you would be given land. So you would become the owner. And it worked for a while just to build up the population, but it didn't work forever, because they started running out of land to give. They're like, okay, too many people are getting land. Like, what are we going to do? We don't have enough indentured servants coming over.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So that's when slavery started becoming a bigger thing. But at this time, like, Africans could become landowners.
Yeah.
So this shocked me. I was just like, really? But of course, like, it probably changed once slavery laws came in, but they were technically already free.
Yeah, technically.
And yeah. So in 1620, we also know that Virginia counts its population has gone up tremendously. So this would, the colonists would go up to 1,194 now.
Ooh.
This would include 32 Africans, 898 men, 141 women, and 192 children.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, in May, an additional 90 women would show up to marry planters. So that's pretty much why women would just be offered to go there, was just to marry. Anything else there was just no importance to it. They just wanted them to marry and start making children to build it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, in 1620, we had Plymouth Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mayflower. So, you would have the Puritans landing in Massachusetts. So, that is interesting and would become... It's not really important to the story, but it's also influential.
Yeah.
Now, skipping to 1622, there is a surprise attack by Opie.
Oh, geez.
He just, like, comes on in, and he was like, we got you! And they kill 347 colonists. This would start the Second Anglo-Powhatan War, and this would last another 10 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was bad. It was constant. It always happened. It was just so much back and forth. But Opie was like, I know that I can be the leader of this chiefdom. I deserve to be the leader. I'm going to prove it by killing these savages who have just been a nuisance.
Uh-huh.
So, he did the damn thing. Now... It sucks, too, because in 1622, another starving time would occur. So they would go through another time of very harsh winter of just not having food, and they would lose a lot of people in that time, too, because it wasn't only starvation, malnutrition, scurvy, but it was also diseases that would have an effect. Pretty sure they're still drinking out of the swamp water.
Oh, probably.
Gross.
It'd be like that.
Now, in 1624, Virginia Company would lose its charter. Yeah. So this would make Virginia a royal colony. So it's no longer being run through the trading company itself. It's now being run by England itself. So it's now a colony. So this is what they're establishing as the first, or like one of the first colonies of like, this is England's land now.
Oh, okay.
Just like how Florida was Spain's.
Yeah.
Technically was, or whatever. It's not really theirs, but they establish it as theirs.
Right.
So in 1625, on March 27th, King James would die.
Oh, no.
Yes, and so Charles I would become successor in making Virginia in a general assembly. So Jamestown would still, like, continue to grow and kind of just start being more established, and we would see it all up to, like, the Revolutionary War to see Jamestown grow. But it didn't grow so much into a town or city or anything. It became more of just land. Mm-hmm. And now we see it as a historic site.
Right.
But you have important time frames of just like Bacon's Rebellion, which is huge, and I would like to cover that because that was in Jamestown. Yeah. And then there was still a lot of struggles that they would still have. Like, they still had that 10-year war with the Powhatans, and it would just continue on and on and on. But Jamestown was very, it lasted in an extent that, like, the settlement itself didn't really stick, but just, like, it grew to expand the colony itself. So Jamestown is very influential in that sense. But, like, it was not perfect. Nonetheless, so that was Jamestown.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that much about it. I'm like, wow.
I didn't either. Just the bad thing is that I had to study it in my early colonial, but I was just like, I want to learn about Spanish and the French. I didn't really care much for the English. I cared more about the French's war. I was really debating this week to either do King Philip's War.
Oh, yeah.
Or to do Jamestown, and I was like, I'm just going to do Jamestown because it's important, it's interesting, and it's crazy to see how many people died.
I know, that's so fascinating. I didn't know so many people would be involved either.
Oh, yeah, there were so
a lot of new characters.
It keeps going, too. I was just like, there's so many governors and just council members. I was just like, my God. Smith was not perfect. No one was perfect in this sense. Everybody had flaws.
I learned that John Smith was really annoying, and I think it's kind of funny.
Dude, it's
that everyone just kind of, like, hated him.
I think I have a picture of him in this.
Oh, yeah.
He is not the most appealing guy.
Not like we see in Pocahontas.
No, everybody had a beard. That was the weird thing. God, there's so much to this. He writes so much. Oh, I think I found it. Maybe that's Percy. I don't know. George Percy. Oh, no. This is John Smith.
Oh, jeez. All right, I'll describe it to the listeners. Wow. What? Wow, he has, like, this big dent on his head. He looks very old. He looks very old. Stressed.
Oh, yeah. He just looks... He doesn't look all right. He has this big, bushy beard. I think he has a receding hairline. Like, his hair looks really gross.
He looks rough.
Yeah. Collars were definitely in then. Big collar. Pop your collars.
So funny.
But, yeah, I thought that was interesting. Pocahontas would die eventually. Then John Rolfe would go back to Jamestown, but he would eventually die there. Or die in England.
Yeah.
But he kind of just left his son after Pocahontas died.
I was gonna ask what happened.
Yeah, he just left Thomas. He was like, okay, you're gonna just be raised over here.
Thomas was just like, guys, hello?
I know. It was sad because she was young. She was very young.
Yeah.
But it's always fun. I kind of want to go watch Pocahontas.
I know, I was just thinking that. I was like, I should watch Pocahontas.
I have Disney Plus.
Best app ever.
Honestly, I love watching Disney Plus, but I love doing I really enjoyed this week and last week's that we did. They're both very, I guess, influential, or not really influential, but like well known. Right,
like everyone's heard of it, but they don't know like a lot of the details.
No, because they don't explain it, because they're freaking Jamestown. There's so much. Like,
yeah,
I was going through a whole timeline and there was so much every single year, and I was like, oh my god.
They documented a lot there.
Yeah. Oh, everybody wrote everything because everybody wanted to be published.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was impossible not to be published. Because the moment you had any exploration, you were going to be published. You're like, I have to write my findings so I can be published and well known, so they have to know what happened. But the thing is that with these publications and what we study from them is that we have to take them with a grain of salt, because we don't know the full story, because this is through their eyes, through their interpretation. That's why archaeology is very important for what we're finding at this historic site of like, how did we can tell of just like, how did these people die around the time that they did? And the thing that sucks too is that right before they entered into Jamestown, there was this massive drought.
Oh,
so that didn't help them either, because they found in one of the trees, you can tell from tree how old it is, what like through the years, if there was a drought, if it was wet, or like if it was like a rain season. So they determined that it was like really drought. It was like a big drought before they came. I was like, dude,
that's wild.
It was not a good situation no matter what. Like, it was a better success than Roanoke, but they definitely lost a lot more lives.
Yeah.
Because they kept just throwing people into it. And whereas James was so hungry for it and wanted it. Whereas, like, Elizabeth was just kind of hesitant. Was like, I don't know. This isn't really what I wanted.
Right.
But James was completely different. He was like, this is exactly what I want. Go ahead and do it. Just get rid of this population. Pretty much.
Yeah.
But.
Craziness.
Yep. Sorry it was a long one, but there was just a lot to it. And I knew that when I started taking all of my notes, I was like, oh, Jesus.
It's hard to shorten that when there's so much.
You can't.
Yeah.
You really can't. Not without getting the full story. And even then, there's still so much.
But stay tuned, because we have more November-themed-ish.
November-themed.
This time period themed. I don't know what to call it.
This era, kind of the new world.
Right. That has to do with a lot of Thanksgiving stuff.
Yeah. Or just kind of just
exploring
blood.
And all the fun stuff.
Brutality. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, thank you for joining this week. Where can you find us?
You can find it. I thought you'd never ask.
Oh my god.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Historia the Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Historia the Pod 1. One day I will post on it, because I always forget it exists. And then you can also send us you can send us an email at historiathepodcast@gmail.com.
Yay.
Yeah. Send us whatever.
Your pets.
Yeah, send us your pets. Any requests of episodes? Yeah. Stories? I don't know. Whatever you want.
We will catch you next week. Have a wonderful day.
Yes. Make history and don't annoy people like John Smith did. Or do.
Just get lost.
Yeah,
don't show up for another couple months.
Okay, bye.
Bye.